testing 1, 2, 3. I can. Can you hear me? I don't hear music. Oh, okay, cool. Exactly. Yeah, sounds good, boss. I got hit for that on YouTube too, because apparently like the one intro elevator music song I picked, somebody owns rights to, so they tried to start canceling episodes. It's like, you know what? Screw you. That's freaking awesome, man. The only thing nice about YouTube is you get premium. You can close your screen and listen to it like a podcast. So I can listen to you guys on YouTube on the treadmill, but on Facebook it's a bitch because I pause and stuff, and then it's like I gotta like scroll back through. That deck show was fun last week. Well, that'd be awesome. I've heard of them. What the hell bit you, Chihuahua? Jesus Christ. Your man down tonight. Is he back in Africa or Europe?
He got drilled this weekend.
Oh.
What's up, everybody? It's Seabass with the Bass and Beer Radio. I got Mr. Paul effing Batters to be exact, sitting to my left, and our good buddy Tom with Fishing the DMV on the other end of the camera. Pumped to be back this Friday. It seems like something different happens every week now in the sport of bass fishing. Professional bass fishing, and even now regulations that could affect the general public. And that's something that we're going to get into a little bit tonight with the regulations that have been proposed. It is proposed, right? It's not passed,
Yeah.
It's proposed.
It's proposed.
On the Coosa River in Alabama. And how, if something like this goes through, it could affect all of us.
So
I think there was a little squirrel that somebody mentioned that could teach us things like this.
It is. If you guys don't know, I did a live stream where I went through the document just line by line talking about it. I'm going tomorrow morning to do it again. This time, hopefully, the YouTube gods will not be mad about what I say and kick it because it got demonetized, so it's not up. But it reminds me a lot about Peanut the Squirrel and about you can create laws that are vague enough to where they can enter your home for no reason and shoot your dog, your squirrel, your raccoon, or take away your ability to fish.
Yeah, for sure. So, speaking of,
God, that just raises makes the hair on my neck stand up even thinking about it. That's
so
terrible.
I just wanted to read a comment that I saw from somebody who mentioned it, from somebody from Alabama, or actually from Tennessee, that mentioned this on Instagram, and a comment that they got, because you're going to find this one interesting. I emailed the director my concerns, and his response was snarky and said stocking programs are useless and like throwing money away into the lake. Also said they have no control over grass spraying and basically couldn't care less. He also said that all of the rebuttals he's received are all based on selfish motives. Basically, it ended with he's going to push this proposal as hard as possible.
So how did they vote for a certain party? Because it's insane like that. Seems like it should be a certain color, but they're acting another way. I'm going to keep it very vague so I protect you guys here. That's insane that that's coming from Alabama. Like, it is absolutely insane how batshit crazy it is down there. And with the Gunnersville, they're spraying the grass at Gunnersville. They're nuking that place. It's so weird this is happening in one of the heartlands of bass fishing.
And I'm curious at how they're not responsible for spraying grass. Like, and now, now, granted, those are all
Squirrel lives matter, Jim.
Army Corps of Engineers lakes, right? So maybe they're TVA, the one, they're going to be the ones responsible to.
I did a live stream where I went through the.
But
it's
weird
because you have talking about it.
Engineers lakes,
Wheeler
right?
and places
so
like that
maybe,
where I've heard people go on record like they want to make sure there's not a blade of grass in there. I did a live stream where I
muted. Sorry.
Oopsies.
Chad pulled up the Facebook stream at the
It
same
doesn't
time.
normally do that.
Yes, it does. It does it every time.
You guys got to go to StreamYards. I'm telling you, it's simpler, but it is also annoying.
Yeah, he was just trying to. Well, he was
also really annoying.
He was just trying to share. He was just trying to share it on his personal page, and it just pulls up the video, and it's like 10 seconds behind. So.
And then the panic sets in.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how like they just come to these conclusions, and that's exactly what they are. They're conclusions. They're baseless conclusions.
And it's the fact why Alabama has always been, for better or worse, the hub of bass fishing. All championships are near Alabama. National championships, everything's Alabama.
All right, it's centrally located, and it's got.
But they don't give a shit about anglers.
The second best bass fishing in the country.
Yeah.
Behind Texas.
Yeah. God bless America for Texas, because that should be the hub. Because at least there, I've talked to some of the guys. I talked to the guy that did a 2-year study on forward-facing sonar. He runs Lake Fork and Toledo Bend, and he's like, I'm not killing the grass here because it's retarded. Like, this is how it should be done. And I'm like, you are my hero. They care about anglers' opinions there. And it's so weird that Alabama, they don't give a shit about anglers. It's like the lowest thing on the totem pole, but yet we're told as anglers that's where you need to go for every championship. Let's take it to another state. Well, why not?
Even taking it out of taking it out of the tournament world, Alabama has like the largest population of fishermen like in the country.
Exactly.
Like, there's more people that fish in Alabama than any other state in the United States. It's insane. You know, that's fishing's such a part of the culture down there, and you know, it's very, very similar to Texas, right?
Hey, Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, and it just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And if you guys want to, I mean, we can go through the article today, some of the lines, because some of the lines that when you read it, things don't add up. Things do not add up.
Before we do that,
it's very contradictory.
I just want to mention. You know, our buddy down in Florida, with during this election, they just passed an amendment here for the constitutional right to fish, fishing and hunting.
Amen.
So, but even then, like, this doesn't necessarily go against that. It's vague enough and only targets. It doesn't say you can't fish. It just says you can't have tournaments.
It's an Overton window. They keep shifting it and shifting it and shifting it until. And the thing is, people have gone on record. I can't name their names, but that fishing is not the biggest industry down there. It's homeowners. It's the TVA. It's the nuclear power plants. Fishing is so low on the totem pole, but they're hypocrites because they'll take money from, you know, the counties in Alabama that do the spraying, and they'll take money from fishermen. They'll play both sides of it, and it's for so. I don't know. And again, I want to say a positive here, though. The way Virginia and Maryland, we always get upset about how Maryland and Virginia run things, but compared to what they're doing in Alabama, they are 300 times better. Because,
oh my gosh.
I mean, Virginia has stocked F1s in Smith Mountain Lake, Lake Anna, the James River. They believe in these programs. We can get into the slides that Maryland talked about, but at least their first things like we should do education, maybe force ice, penalties, not immediately ban effing tournaments.
Right.
But
There wasn't a-
Alabama was fine with it.
There wasn't a. I mean, there wasn't a single thing in their presentation for to make things better that included banning tournaments.
Exactly.
And as I mentioned to you the other night, I mean, if you look at what Miss Barb has done on the St. Lawrence River and how much that has reduced tournament mortality on the St. Lawrence River. I mean, and now granted, she has spent a lot of her personal time being at tournaments, educating anglers on how to fizz fish, how to take care of these fish. But it's made such a huge impact on tournament mortality. I mean, exponentially decreased tournament mortality just through education.
Hey, Charles, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate you. Charles says he moved from Maryland down to Houston, Texas, and he says it's very much different.
Oh, Houston.
Yeah.
You got Lake Conroe right up the road. I fished a national championship there a couple years ago.
And something that came in my comment section when I asked about like the tournament situation, everyone's like, oh, catch, weight, release, catch, weight, release. The technology is not there yet for catch, weight, release to be at a BFL level. Will it eventually? Probably. It will be in our lifetime, but not yet.
Yeah, it's so hard, and I heard a lot of people talking about that. And
you would have to have a marshal on everybody's boat.
Well,
probably.
I didn't get into the comment fighting about the catch, weigh, release, but Susquehanna Fishing Tackle was talking about it on their live last night, and because they fished a catch, weigh, release tournament this weekend, and they like it. They said, "Hey, this is a club level tournament. This is great for a club level tournament."
I will also caveat that this is Thomas saying this, by the way, so don't get mad at these guys. A lot of the guys at the Susquehanna were the ones that pressured PA to outlaw weigh-in tournaments. Not Susquehanna Tackle, but it was the guys around Susquehanna that until kayak fishing came along, no one knew what the Susquehanna was because they banned tournaments. So, of course, I feel like they're going to be like, oh, yeah, catch, weigh, release is great. Like, well, yeah, it's because your freaking state outlawed everything. And now all the PA anglers come to Maryland in the spring because you outlawed everything.
What's up, snails?
There was a certain person that I won't mention any names that may have been part of the Black Bass Advisory Board at one time that pushed very hard to get tournaments banned because they happened to be a guide on the Potomac and
Shocker.
They didn't appreciate tournament anglers, and they said this. They didn't appreciate tournament anglers being on the water when they were out trying to make money.
I thought they also lost their boat deal because they said bad things about veterans too. But yeah, anyway, that's another story for another day.
Does the name rhyme with Ramrod?
I think so.
Just
great porno name.
Yeah.
But it's
not a fan.
Where,
but anyway,
where are we going with this? I guess it's like it's this. You know what I mean?
So what I wanted to say about catch, weigh, release is there's no way to guarantee. Now, granted, you can cheat in a weigh-in tournament, but not having a weigh-in makes cheating a whole lot easier.
Yes.
But I've been on record with this. I'm not going to be the guy that is going to say like, oh, what is the internet? It'll never catch on. I do think catch, weigh, release with technology, AI and everything, it will probably be the thing. I am not going to say it's not. Like weigh-ins will eventually go away.
I'm not against it.
But it's young. And I think the problem is it's not about the catch, weigh, release. It's about seeing how the sausage is made in government. It won't stop here.
That's what we're talking about, Jim. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom.
No. If you outlaw catch, because there's an Overton window of like back in the 60s, it was like, okay, if you just catch and kill fish with the first tournament.
One of our listeners just said it's okay for effing Penrod to sit on bedding smallies on the river, but don't dare fish beds on the massive Potomac.
Rules for thee and not for me.
What's up, Petey?
But I'm like you. I'm not against catch, weigh, release, but there's no way to. It makes it very hard to regulate Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Like
as of now, it's
I'm
hard to regulate. In the future, will it be? Probably not. But like to me,
Right.
like that's that's not the argument that should be had. It's the principle of first, it's catch and kill is bad. Let's do weigh-ins, and then this is bad. Let's do this because what they want is zero mortality. If zero mortality is the goal, fishing will be no, not if you ban
Not if you
fishing.
ban fishing.
And that's the next step because there are countries where it's illegal to fish if you don't harvest. And if you keep pushing it, if you keep eliminating it.
Why does it keep doing this?
I don't know. What'd you break?
I have broken nothing. I don't know why it keeps doing that. You're back.
But yeah, I guess that's my biggest fear is it's first like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And all of a sudden it's the same thing like Pennsylvania did. Hey, let's take, and we don't want you to fish during the spawn because it's bad for the fish. Okay, fine. We won't fish till May, but the temperature's too warm. So we don't want you to fish from May to September. All of a sudden you can't fish a tournament from April till September. They just took away half the year. Look how quickly they did that. They just keep taking and taking and taking. And a lot of the logic doesn't make sense in their argument.
Well, look at how much of that's going on in things that isn't fishing. It's all over the place. It's right in front of your face. It
like
doesn't,
a squirrel.
You know what I mean? It's like a squirrel.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happens in a lot of areas that the government is involved in. I'm not trying to bash the government by any means, but government overreach has been an issue forever, really, since government has existed. And
exactly,
if you don't participate, my biggest, and you mentioned this the other night. The biggest thing is like if you don't participate in the process, your rights and your activities are going to be taken from you.
Easily gone.
Because if you don't participate, then they're only hearing one side. And if they only hear one side, then that's all sides to them.
Because it was, and an anecdote for this was like Smith Mountain Lake. The BPT is coming to Smith Mountain Lake. And a lot of fishermen were mad about that. And I was like, good. You know why? I know the people on the board. Most of them don't fish. It was mothers and people in the county that thought this was good for fishermen, which means they still recognize the importance of fishing.
Right. Because it brings, you're bringing 100 people, crew, families into an area. They're spending, they're buying food, they're buying tackle from local places, they're staying in hotels, and they're, it's in for a relatively low cost to the community, is injecting a lot into the economy.
And more so than the economy, it's keeping the culture alive.
For sure.
In Northern Virginia and Maryland, where we get so many people from California and New York that fly in for the jobs and stuff, and they change the culture. Letting people know when they own a boat dock, like this fishing is a part of the culture. This is what happens. That is so freaking important because once that culture gets lost and you have blue-haired people making the calls for your local lake, why would they care if you have a bass boat tournament? They want more wake boats. They want a place that you can paddleboard in your bikini and take a picture for your Instagram. They don't give a shit about a boat because it's not part of their culture. And so having big tournaments come in there and they show like, this is a big deal. It's headline news that keeps it alive and viable.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. It's funny you mentioned wakeboard boats because Alabama has started to restrict wakeboat usage. Just putting in some
washing out the banks.
Yeah, putting in some regulations for you can't operate a wake boat within X amount of feet, stuff like that. But then they want to like ban fishing.
Which one's more environmentally hurtful? Like it's the wake boat,
right?
But it's also lawyers and trust fund babies that own a wake boat that are like $150,000.
Yeah,
Jim. That's
all the important people.
So Jim says that's why I go to shareholder meetings twice a quarter on the St. John's Water Management (FWC), so we know what's being done, what's being spent, and we have a say in our lake. And I want my voice to be heard. Someone has to care. If people don't care, we won't have anything. They are absolutely right.
I can't argue with any of that. I mean, you got to go out there and do it. I mean, Jared Mounts, who's on the board for Lake Holiday, he said when he got on the board, he said no one fishes and most of them are stay-at-home moms, and they were making the calls on the lake. How many of that's happening at Lake Anna or the Potomac or anywhere around there? Because you wouldn't get up off your butt if you're listening and go to the meetings to see what they're talking about. It would probably shock you because most people aren't sadly outdoorsmen anymore.
The other thing that I find, and this is something that I find that I struggle with,
Black Ops 6 just dropped, dude.
is the yeah, I struggle with that because it's been about 15 years since I played Call of Duty, and I would probably suck.
Black Ops 6 pretty good.
These voluntary positions that are available that initiate some of these decisions, I feel like the people who need to be part of that discussion, like you said, they're stay-at-home moms. Well, stay-at-home moms have all the time in the world to attend meetings.
Yep, that's the problem.
You know, the guy, you know, the guy is, let's say, the guide, you know, that's busting his ass to guide, you know, and guiding 5 to 6 days a week from, you know, doing 2 guide trips a day, you know, first half of the day, second half of the day. And by the time he gets off the water, you know, the meeting's over because he was working.
Yep.
You know, it's sometimes these positions there, and you mentioned something the other night that when I was talking to you that, you know, really hit, that we need some sort of organization for anglers, or a representative body,
an NRA, so to speak, for us. Yeah,
because we don't, and we do. So a lot of people don't know this, and BASS will assist with waterway, like things like waterway access disputes.
Yep.
So this never, you know, that kind of stuff never really comes in. They helped in New Jersey quite a bit. New Jersey was having some issues with private landowners and trying to limit access to these smaller lakes in New Jersey. And, you know, hey, you know, BASS stepped up, provided their lawyers to help fight their lawyers. And, you know, BASS is a good, even though you may not be a BASS member, but if you have a local issue like the Coosa River, that's more of a regional issue. But if you have a local issue, you know, that is definitely a route to take, is, you know, reaching out to BASS. They have a department that deals with this stuff. So we kind of do have that representative body, but we kind of don't, right?
And it's a problem because, like, it comes down, for people that are listening, it's like, it's about, sadly, suing. It's your ability to sue big dogs. And, like, classic example is the River Keepers organization. If you try to dump toxins in,
shout out
you know, the sassafras or the Potomac River, whatever, they whole purpose is to be able to sue government to make sure that stops. We don't really have that for lakes,
right?
Which is weird. And so if you want to challenge somebody like the Army Corps of Engineers or the TVA or a homeowners association, that takes a ton of money and time to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, and it does. And I know the person who, the Gunpowder River Keeper, and mostly deals with, like, the upper end of the gunpowder. He's a trout fisherman, right? He owns a fly shop, and that was his thing. But he's helped out immensely on the lower end with a lot of the runoff and from developments and things like that have occurred in the last couple of years. And, you know, doing water quality samples. So, like, it's great to have that, but what do you have for, you know, like a pretty boy or, you know, a Liberty? You know, there's, you know, that kind of stuff.
You don't have that.
Exist there.
No.
You know, it's basically whatever Baltimore City says goes.
Sam says he was just out with the Chop Tank River Keeper.
Nice.
Yeah, and he's a cool guy. He actually presented for the Black Bass Association. But, like, this happened, a textbook example is Lake Manassas in Virginia, where it's about 800, 900 acres. It used to be a great fishery. And then a Mongol came in and bought some land around it. And then he bought some more, and he bought some more until he owned all the land around it. And then he closed down fishing. And he spends, I think it was like $80,000 a year with cops that patrol the lake to keep people off of it. To this day, $80,000 a year to spend to take people off of it, because he just bought all the land around it and he turned it into a golf course and all that other crap. And You can't do anything about it.
Right. You know, and you know, for especially something that had, if it originally had public access, you know, that needs to stay. It doesn't matter how much land you buy around it. Like public access should always stay public access. We should always have the ability to, you know, to be on those waters.
Because it's a finite resource. If BlackRock wants to go build their own goddamn lake and then build a community, awesome. But how many lakes do we actually have? And if you have a community go in and buy it all around it and take it away, that's finite. There's not a lot of those built. And this is why I get afraid of with like a Lake Anna in Virginia or a Deep Creek Lake in Maryland, where it's a very touristy place. There's a lot of money. Real estate prices are going up.
Yep.
I can easily see a trust fund baby getting hit by a bass boat, and all of a sudden they're like, unless you own a piece of property here, you can't launch your boat.
Well, that's what, like,
because we
think
want to
about.
protect
You have like the hot side of like Lake Anna, in
Or the speed
Virginia.
limit's
It's
6
like
miles an
always,
hour
like,
everywhere.
prime, but you can't launch in Lake Anna's hot side unless you own or are renting a piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the fear is that in the future that something like that would happen even on cold side too. You have a lot of big money things happening out there. All that needs to happen is a couple accidents need to happen, and then
I feel
the
like
right people need to come together and try to say, okay, well, we need to keep
It's
people
not
from out of
crazy is the
state
problem.
coming here.
yeah,
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy. I don't know that that's necessarily a good example, seeing as the hot side of Lake Anna is 3 cooling ponds like that are owned by the power company. So them limiting access to something that they own.
But you don't see that happening to the cold side either.
I know. I don't see that.
It could
I
be a
hope.
possibility.
But
But if it
not on a body of water that large. Plus, you have too many. There's too many marinas there, right?
But think of the kids. And they're putting in $1 billion hotel and a golf course here in the next 10 years. I hope you're right. I don't want to be right about this. It's just the homeowners associations get so much power because the money. When you talk about these real estate prices around lakes, it's insane.
Say it again. The money.
It's all about the money.
All about
money,
the money.
money.
Everything's
It's
about the
always-
money.
Always has been, always will be.
Your natural resources aren't shit. It's about the money.
Well, like the example that I gave you the other night, you know, we had a speed limit enacted that was enacted kind of under the table, a little bit, and was kind of slid through, right? And we went to try to go through the right processes to get this amended into, instead of a 6 mile an hour zone, of 35, which 35 is reasonable.
What's up, Brian?
And we go to this advisory board. They come to hear us, and I could not physically make that meeting because of work, but I have quite a few friends that were at this meeting. There were 10 people on the advisory board. 9 of them voted to amend this. When the amendment went to the Secretary of DNR, it was immediately shot down. Later on, after this, we find out that the person who initially instigated the 6 mile an hour zone and the Secretary of DNR happened to be friends. And that shit pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you try to do things the right way and you try to work with people, and it's not like we were asking, you know, that we can run 70 miles an hour through these canals. Like, hey, we just want to be able to run 30 to 35 miles an hour so we can come in on plane and not rip our lower unit off. And, you know, the advisory board was like, yeah, that's logical. That makes sense. Perfect. And then it goes past them, and it's just like, yeah, no.
Yeah, and this is the thing that stinks about politics in 2024 is it comes down to how much can you embarrass people or how much you can sue them. It's one of the two. So if you took that to the local news network and talked about it, they probably buckle immediately because a lot of them, they're cowards. Like that's what they do. Or you sue them and they don't want to deal with that either. It's like you can't. Our politics are so much not about voting anymore, generally speaking, on something. It's about how much money you have so you can cause to be a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a big enough pain in the ass, they listen to you. And that's just it.
Or
it
if
sucks.
you donate enough money.
Or if you donate enough money. Yeah.
One way or the other, it's all about money, right?
Yeah.
How much money of theirs?
Depressingly.
How much money of theirs can you waste, or how much money can you give them?
And that's when because the Army Corps of Engineers said like they're going to raise the rates on tournament directors for their lakes. So like Bugs Island, like it's going to cost more if you're a tournament director that wants to hold it there. And a lot of people got upset. And part of me is almost like, okay, fine. Like if we have to spend enough money, they're going to get used to it. They'll listen. Occoquan Reservoir in Northern Virginia, they have to do things a certain way or they will lose the ability to fish there. Well, the park doesn't want them to go because they give them so much money. So they fight for them against the rowing teams. It's you almost got to play this mafia game with some of these people in 2024.
Yeah. You know, I look at it like, you know, they're locally like in fighting against businesses where, you know, certain marinas don't want tournaments launched out of there. But then again, you know, they're charging $20 to launch there, and you got, you know, 120 boats launching there per day, twice a weekend, not counting the people that fish there during the week. I mean, you're making $4,000 a weekend for having a parking lot.
It's a lot of money.
Their customers don't use the boat ramp. You know, their customers are the vast majority of their customers store their boat there. Like they're dry docked. They pull them out of the warehouse. They drop them in the water.
Yep.
So, like it's like, oh, we don't want tournaments here, but we'll make $4,000 a weekend off those tournaments.
Yeah,
so
it's just it's culture.
It kind of goes back to what you said earlier about like, oh well, they'll take money from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're not just going to say no because we don't want to lose that money. But now we know, well, we basically have a monopoly on this area, you know, this body of water. So, well, let's just we'll just raise the ramp fee from $10 to $20, even though there's been no improvements. There's no monitoring. The parking lot is the same. It's not even an asphalt parking lot, right? It's a dirt parking lot. So it's not like there's upkeep, right?
Yeah, and it's so weird, the fight, and
everything's
who's
so contradictory.
bitching on? Yeah, and who's bitching on their side? Because you'll pass wake boaters or Karen like skiing, and she waves at you and cuts you off, and you're like, that dumb bitch doesn't know what she's doing. She's completely oblivious. She's not the one complaining, I think.
No.
So on their side, who's complaining? It's got to be a person with too much time on your hand, like we talked about, the Karen that stays at home. She's the one complaining because it's not those leisurely boaters out there, I don't think.
Oh, I don't want to hear a boat motor at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I don't want to, I'm tired of,
I don't want to wake up and look out
and see somebody fishing my dock.
I don't want to wake out and look out my $100,000 glass on the back of my house and see a bass boater at 6:30 in the morning while I'm still wearing my robe.
Oh,
guess what?
We had a
don't buy a house on the water.
You know what I mean? Like, so like, not to be like rude or completely off top, but like if we're on the water, like I don't really care. I will whip it out and just pee right in front of your house. Mm-hmm. Where else am I supposed to pee? You're on the water. You're not that this is like, you know what I mean? Like you're living on the water. You're looking out your back window. You're gonna see boats there. You're gonna see people there. It's public water. People can be there. Well, I don't understand. Like, why did guys? Going back to what you said, why would you even bother buying a house on the water?
You want me to tell you a funny story about peeing in the water? 100%.
I have a couple of them.
100% illegal on the St. Lawrence River.
Really?
You cannot pee in the water on the St. Lawrence River. You will get 100% get fined.
You can't do that on Loch Raven either, can you? You're not supposed to.
Probably not, but I don't think it. Like, it's not like they have people patrolling out there. But yeah, the Canadian side anyway. Canada waters on the St. Lawrence River in Ontario. You cannot pee in the water.
But buying waterfront property and then being upset that you see people is like,
well, it's like a person living in Texas complaining about a squirrel in New York and getting it euthanized, which is what happened.
It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Is that really what happened? I haven't followed that at all, but that's really somebody not even local.
It was a conservationist in Texas that complained enough to the government in New York, that they got it euthanized.
A conservationist.
I think I would be. I think I would be flying to Texas if I was that guy.
Dude,
Do you understand how funny it is that a conservationist turned someone in and the squirrel died?
Yep, they got it euthanized. It's so fucking dumb. It was like there was a baseball
I love
park.
conservationists.
I can't even laugh about it because I'm so upset for the squirrel and the raccoon.
And the raccoon, dude, it's batshit crazy. Guys, yeah, you don't want more government, you want less. But anyway, like, I mean, there was a family that moved into a baseball park where I grew up, and they sued to prevent them from putting lights on the ball field that they had money for because it bothered their ability to sleep at night. So they kept a lawsuit going for 10 years until the county finally turned it over and won it. Another great example, last one, is White's Ferry in Northern Virginia. It is one of the longest running ferries ever crossing Virginia to Maryland. Some dumb bitch bought land in Virginia and then sued to shut down the ferry until they paid like $50 million. And the ferry is still closed to this day.
Right, because they're not going to pay it.
They're not going to pay it. But it's just like, these people exist.
Well, yeah, and I just
The
read
people that ruin lives.
Yes.
I just read an article the other day on HOAs, and a farmer has a farm that's been there for multi-generations. Mm-hmm. They build a housing development
Hundreds of years.
adjacent to it, and the HOA now has him locked in litigation because he stores his farm equipment outside. So they served him a cease and desist for farming until the lawsuit is settled. The cease and desist is farming in general because it disturbs. He's not part of the HOA. This is an HOA doing this. HOAs have zero power. Like they are not a government entity.
They think they do.
They sure do. I hate HOAs so much.
I'm so glad
communism.
there isn't one here. You have an
Wait,
HOA?
No,
No?
I wouldn't buy a house with an HOA. I refuse.
Is that possible in Baltimore?
We're in Hartford County, so
Oh, okay, gotcha.
it's better up here. But I mean, a lot of the neighborhoods where I live in Joppatown, I do have HOAs.
A little bit on the brighter side of things.
But yeah, it's funny story. You know what? You know how HOAs came to exist? 100% racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being completely serious about this.
Hope you didn't want to be demonetized.
Well, we don't make any money from this anyway. So, HOAs were established in the mid 1900s during the time of the civil rights. Mm-hmm. So they could basically dictate who could or could not move into a neighborhood. That's
and now
why,
look what they do.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What was that like bill or that law it actually still exists today?
Which one?
Racism?
What does it have to do
No,
with?
there's a bill or a law in Maryland that has something to do with segregation for like neighborhoods. Well, it still exists, but it's like nobody pays any attention to it.
Well,
Because
because
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, it's just stupid.
Well, Google, I mean, people that are listening, Google like dumb laws in America that are still on the books. So example is at World War I, they still had a law in the books in Great Britain that someone was looking out for Napoleon up until World War I. Because why? Government never repeals laws. And this is why I get so mad about this
He's
stuff.
been dead for 100 years.
Once you put shit out there, no one wants to repeal it.
Right.
So you're
It's
stuck
so
with
hard
that
to
crap.
repeal. It's so hard to repeal anything.
And
I
that's,
mean, it's insane how hard it is to get something repealed once it's there. I mean, that's one of the back in the early standards of the which you're familiar with these the summertime
equals paying to live with your parents.
The summertime tournament regulations, right? That we have in Maryland. Mm-hmm. So when that first came out, what Joe, and this was directly from Joe Love, and I don't mind saying that. I don't mind Joe, but sometimes he has some kind of wonky ideas. Mm-hmm. Is the regulations that they put out were just asinine, right? Like basically, no one, unless you were a professional organization, could meet these standards. So were very worried that that was going to, again, same thing that we're talking about here, right? Is that that was going to lead to a ban in tournaments, and figuring out, luckily it's not it wasn't a actual regulation, because regulations have to get passed and voted on and all that fun stuff. So it was guidelines.
Tyson.
So there's still a lot of stuff that really bothers me about the tournament permit system and tournament regulations that go on in Maryland. Not so much that they exist, but like what's the penalty if you don't? Like, oh, you can't get a tournament permit. So who actually goes out and asks for tournament permits? Because I've ran a lot of tournaments. I've never had someone from DNR come and ask me for a tournament permit.
Well, that's the thing, is like most of these penalties are hollow. I mean, it's a great example of like spoilers to everyone, like fishing licenses are going up next year for freshwater fishing licenses because Maryland hasn't raised them since 1980, I think. And they were like, oh, that was dumb. But fun fact, let's say you don't have a fishing license and you get fined. They don't get that money. That's the general fund.
Right.
So they can't even enforce their own goddamn laws. Like the system's broken.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely broken. But
it's definitely broken.
It's like, I come to a point like, again with the tournaments that I run, I report my catches. I'm usually a little slow on that, and they usually yell at me for not reporting the catches from our tournament, or reporting them too late. But I'm busy. All right.
I'm a busy man. I'm important.
Like what to me, I sit here and think about it, and like in hindsight, I'm like, what's the point? Like I've never been asked for a tournament permit while holding a tournament. Nobody's ever, aside from the city of Havre de Grace or one of the state parks. One of the state, if you want to have a tournament at a state park, they're going to tell you have to have a permit. Okay. But if I want to have a tournament anywhere else, like I can just have a tournament and nobody cares. And if I don't have a tournament permit, what's my penalty? I can't get a tournament permit. Well, I didn't have a tournament permit anyway, so obviously I don't care about it.
And that's where it's like, I brought this up to the boards, like at least publicly shame. Like at least if anything else, you could say like, by the way, the BFLs had the worst KD ratio last year. Because at least then it's out in public and people can be shamed and embarrassed about it. Maybe they lose sponsors. Like, okay, in 2024 with social media, that might be the ticket. But when people are like, oh, we don't want to do that, it's like, then what are we doing here? Are we just trying to pass laws for the sake of laws?
Well, right. And I mean, theoretically, there can't be any penalty for the tournament permits because there's no actual regulation on the books for it. Mm-hmm. It's not an actual law. It was never voted on. It was never voted on in Annapolis. It is a guideline that was set forth by DNR. It's not an actual regulation. It was never voted into law. So they can say, "Oh, well, you can do this," but if I fight back and say, "Well, show me the law that tells me I can't do this," theoretically, like there's no law that says you have to get a tournament permit. And that kind of government, I akin that to the overreach, because they're telling you have to do this. If you want to do this, you have to do this. But there's no law saying that I have to do that. This is just a government agency telling me that you have to do something, even though there's no actual law for it.
I think that'll change though.
Sadly. I think I have nothing against the tournament permit system. It's the process behind it. I think the tournament permit system is good. It's a good way to track how many tournaments there are. It's a good way to get information on fish catches, which tells you, again, information about fishing population.
I'm not paying the fees either. It's just the
there's
way that they go about getting a tournament permit.
It's free.
It's a free permit.
Tournament's free. Yeah.
Which again, I brought it up. It's the department says they're out of money, but then the tournament permits are free. It's just like nothing makes sense.
Can't charge
It
for
doesn't.
it. Can't charge for it if it's not officially on the books.
I know, but it's like, so like none of it makes sense. I don't get me started on that. Like
Right.
once, if you work for government for a
Right.
day, well, I guess some of you guys have, but it's a freaking nightmare. It does,
Oh,
some of these things
I
don't make
work
any
for the
sense.
government. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nothing.
it's-
They literally nothing they do makes sense. Nothing.
Mhm.
It's so contradictory. And again, I have no problem with the tournament permits. I actually think the tournament permits are a great idea.
It is. Look at the difference between the Alabama write-up and the Maryland. Maryland at least has data because they freaking collected.
We
You know, we
should,
have 8 years of data.
We should bring up that the Coosa write up.
I don't want to go through that again.
I mean,
Oh
did we
my God.
cover literally everything that was in there? From like the sizes of the fish to
So here, do you have any younger relatives, like high school age relatives? Or know anybody
in
like in high school?
Texas.
Okay, well, you know what? We have a high school aged guy that watches the show. So let's have our little John write a research paper on bass fishing and turn it into us. And I promise, I will bet any amount of money that it will be better written than that article.
Yeah.
yes.
It's bad.
I completely agree with you. It's more of just showing how stupid it was.
It's absolutely retarded.
Well, I have it up here because it is fun. At
That's
least
what I'm
we
saying.
got-
Like it's almost just entertainment. At
it
this
makes
point.
makes me visibly angry.
well, it's 2 pages. How
Oh,
about you guys
now
read
I
it this
definitely
time?
want to look at it. It's fun.
Yeah,
I'll
how about
read
you
it.
guys read it this time? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Okay. I'll share
We can
the screen.
we can bash some Alabama DNR. Oh, why is it so long?
It is long. All right, hold on. We're gonna go. Can we put this up on the screen? Figure out how we can do that. Introduction.
So I'm gonna breeze through the introduction. Basically, they worked with Auburn University to study the impact of bass tournaments on Neely Hendry and the Coosa River chain, and it cost almost $1 million.
For 3 years.
It cost almost $1 million to write this paper, essentially.
How many bass could you stock for $1 million?
So let's do the math on this. So Scott Sewell actually stocks the gunpowder, so I'm pretty familiar with the approximate cost of a 14-inch bass, like an adult bass, because that's what they stock. So what is that? 840.
Divided by 3 is
The project was
278,000.
840
So
total, yeah.
it would be their 14-inch bass are expensive, but they could have stocked 38,000 14-inch bass.
To fix the problem about not having 14-inch bass.
Right, exactly.
Again, it's like
They could have spent half the money, just put 15,000 14-inch bass in there, and hey, look at that, we have 14-inch bass again. But
That's
stocking doesn't work. So
No, stocking doesn't work. Can't talk about that.
all right, so let's talk. They talk about their methods. I use that term very loosely. Our population modeling used variables obtained from portions of the Auburn University study and from our long-term standardized sampling database.
What is that? Like could you-
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what's this Auburn study. What is their sampling database? I have no idea.
All variables are scientific estimates based upon the
results
results
of-
of these studies.
that
Table
we
1
just
shows
told
the
you to take
Yeah.
our word for.
Table 1 shows the parameters used to perform the simulating model. The Neely Henry study estimates very high annual capture rates for largemouth bass, 80%, and Alabama or spotted bass at 120%.
Okay,
However,
first off, that's
how do
a
you-
shit ton of Alabama bass.
that's a lot. 120%?
How do you so basically there's I'm trying to dissect this sentence. Are they saying
Jim Fallon says he'll send us 14-inch bass for half the price.
so if they're
F1 series.
the annual capture rate for Alabama bass on Neely Hendry, they're basically saying that every single fish on that lake gets caught 1.2 times per year.
Yeah, it's almost double a largemouth.
Every single fish on the lake gets caught more than once.
I'm
is
pretty
what they're
sure
saying.
that's scientifically impossible.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's scientifically. The Neely Henry study estimates area how to capture 80% and 120%. However, only 2% of captured largemouth bass and 4% of captured Alabama bass were harvested by recreational anglers.
That you know of.
but that's what's fun is like watch
There's
how they
no
set this
study
up.
on this.
Yeah, but watch how you set it up because recreational those are the good guys. We're the Nazis.
This is
Right.
because what? So they're talking about the
Hold on.
studies that they
We'll get
showed
there.
from freaking the people that go in the parking lot, and they're like, "How many fish did you capture today?"
Right.
I'm just here. I'm not trying to bother you. I'm just here because
Not-
it's my job.
Not bank fishing Bob, who's out there, clobbering, five, whatever their limit is. So we'll say it's five, 18-inch spotted bass every day out of the tail race.
So, however, 2% of the captured largemouth bass and 4% of the captured Alabama bass were harvested by recreational anglers, but 42% of the total captured events occurred during tournament competition. It was estimated that a total of 45% of the bass weighed into the tournament suffered pre or post related mortality death.
Okay,
Wait,
wait, can we
whoa,
wait?
whoa,
Can
whoa,
we
whoa.
talk about that for a second?
So how is most of the problem? This is going farther down in here. How is most of the problem when the total capture is only 40%?
Guys, if you're watching
never
this,
mind.
like
I
it,
get it.
like and share right now because
I'm not
this
gonna
is
get
a
into
spicy topic. Like and share. Bring some
So-
more people in here.
It was estimated that a total of 45% of bass weighed in during tournaments suffered pre and or post release mortality.
And
According
estimated
to
for
what
people
study?
listening
What-
is a scientific word for
study?
we guess.
What kind of studies
study?
are out there
Where's-
of the
where's the study?
post-release mortality?
There's a bunch by Lake Fork, Texas, Maryland has a
New
couple
York.
here.
There's a ton in New York.
And what we're
and
talking
they-
about here, yeah, go for it.
And those studies are all across the board, right? Because it takes there's much more to post tournament mortality or mortality than just catching a fish. Locate, where in the country it is, what the temperature is, the quality of water in that lake. So that's why you see so much variation, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing at this point in the article is the fact that how it's structured, it's coming across as a scientific journal by Auburn University saying like, based on our research, this is what we think should happen. There's no links.
Did Auburn? Did you find anything from Auburn? Did you look?
No,
I
I
just-
didn't.
You didn't look, or you didn't find anything.
I didn't look.
I want to go down to what they say even a little bit further down from this. The 45% is weighed in, suffers pre and post because of some of the studies that have done from the post mortality is likely a conservative estimate.
Yeah, this here is big. Let's talk about this paragraph here. This one blows my mind.
50 to 80%.
It was
during hot weather?
estimated that a total of 45% of bass weighed in during tournaments suffered pre and post release mortality. This is likely a conservative estimate. As research has shown, the total tournament mortality can range from 50 to 80% during hot weather. See figure 1. And then this weird ass line, as high school and college tournaments have increased the number of summertime tournaments. That shouldn't be there. Anyway. Okay.
High school and college tournaments have increased. The number of summertime tournaments has also.
So
Okay.
I'm going to get, I have spent the last 48 hours autistically. This is my life. So, if let's say it is 50 to 80% mortality.
Found it.
Are you talking? Oh, you found it?
I'm gonna send it to you.
Perfect. So let's say it's 50 to 80%. Are you talking about in a nation on a certain body of water? Because I spent all the time making an Excel spreadsheet. And let's say if you had an event that had 1,300 fish caught and you had an average of a 3% mortality rate, that is 41 fish killed. Now, let's say you had 100 tournaments. That's over 300,000 fish caught. And that would be 4,000 dead for the year. Now, let's go to their asinine figure of 45%. That's 61,000 fish. If there was only 50,000 fish of 3 pounds plus in that lake, it would be dead in a year. It makes no sense. If it was literally that way, it would be a genocide on that lake. It would be better if you just
Like
put a
a
bullet in the
fish
fish's
kill
head.
all the time.
All the time. You would need over 1 million bass in that impoundment over at 3 pounds to get it down to 6%. So It's just them spewing figures, because this is my biggest thing. If you don't know how many fish are in the body of water, what does it matter if it's 80%? Is it there's only 1,000 bass that are 3 pounds? Is it 10 million? It doesn't mean any data. It's just to scare you. On Neely Henry, the captured rates were very high for both species. For comparison, a study at Lake Gunnersville estimated an annual capture rate of largemouth bass at about 50%. No shit, it's Lake Gunnersville. Both reservoirs receive heavy tournament pressure that negatively impact the size structure of their bass population. However, Neely Henry is 6 times smaller, more riverine, and does not have expansive overbank areas. We're not going to talk about hydrilla because the Coosa River reservoirs are small and more vulnerable to the effects of tournament mortality. Interesting stuff. And then they list in like all the lakes on the Coosa River. There was one quote I got to find it here that I absolutely loved. Let me go find it. It was about angler. Oh, here it is. This one right here.
Neely, Henry, Logan Martin, Lay, and Mitchell Jordan reservoirs are total less than 75% of total surface acreage of Lake Gunnersville.
Which what they're saying is because the lake is small, it'll get pressured more. But Lake Anna still pumps them out. There's a Clear Lake, not Clear Lake, Deep Creek, 5,000 acres, still a lot of fish caught. So a small lake can still be good. This here, I think you and I both thought was funny as shit. All right, so finally, it is estimated that approximately 70% of the total tournament-related mortality rate is being caused by competitors who don't even have enough weight to earn a prize.
Where's the head in here?
Right there on page 2. It's this weird shot across the bow, like, and 70% of these idiots can't even do well in the tournaments.
Yeah, right here. Finally, it's estimated approximately 70% of tournament anglers' related mortality is being caused by competitors who don't have enough to weigh any prizes.
So what I find interesting, so they said this, and then in the second, it directly after that, it says, I think it was directly after that, or was it somewhere in here? It talks about, it may be farther into it, but it talks about they encourage the weighing in of non-competitive bags because they can qualify for a bigger tournament. Well,
we're gonna get into that. Yeah,
isn't that a freaking prize? Like, didn't you earn a prize if you qualified for that?
Okay, here it is. Most tournament trails encourage weighing of non-competitive bags of fish in order to award points to anglers and teams to qualify them for more exclusive, larger payout tournaments at the end of the season. Obviously, this practice is inflating mortality by encouraging all anglers and teams to weigh fish even when they suck at fishing. Eliminating this practice would not prevent lengthy live well confinement, but it would decrease mortality rates.
You may have ad-libbed something there.
I did ad-lib a little bit there, but it's just very personal. And again, it goes back to like all 6 lakes. This here, I think, is this her? This here was interesting because it's an admission of guilt that this is going to hurt their bodies of water. Applying the same regulation changes to all 6 lakes would ensure that angling will be improved for all anglers who fish the Coosa River reservoirs, and that no local municipality will be disproportionately affected by the loss of tournaments participation. We're going to make sure all 6 lakes equally lose money.
You're all equally fucked.
Yeah, but they admit it in the article that we know this is going to negatively impact the economy.
And I think that I think anyone from Alabama who is involved in fighting this should take that exact statement and go to those municipalities and get in contact with the government at those municipalities and say,
Jason, happy birthday.
They know that this is going to negatively affect you, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah, and then I guess this is the last part here, because this is actually the thing that's making the rounds. We might as well talk about this, which is okay. These are their recommendations from Auburn University. For size structure to improve, tournament mortality must be reduced. There are a number of ways this could be accomplished. Number 1, limiting the tournament size and frequency. Number 2, prohibiting tournaments during times when water temperatures are above 70 degrees, which is basically May through September. Number 3, mandating catch and release tournament formats. Number 4, restricting the length and the limits. This is what scared the crap out of me, is because they separated out catch, weigh, release, and tournaments.
1 second. Jim, you are 100% correct. The biggest fucking problem is all these idiots that make regulations and the rules and all this bullshit data don't fish.
Yep. Exactly. 100 freaking percent. It's, and again, like there's so many people when I put the poll about getting rid of tournament fishing, and they said yes, but it's like, I didn't say what type. I just said tournament fishing.
Sounds like they need a new abacus.
Oh my God. 100%.
Oh, that's hilarious. So they come up with they come up with these rules. Did we get to the Boyd Duckett part yet?
Oh yes, that's a good one. I forgot about that.
we missed the Boyd Duckett part here.
It's our hope that a tournament-only regulation will encourage more tournament organizations to voluntarily adopt the catch, weigh, release format that our beloved god Boyd Duckett, Major League Fishing, for its Pro Tour events. This model is also being used almost exclusively by kayak tournament trails and other conservation-minded bass clubs.
You know what? I will have to say something here. If they made kayaks with live wells, they wouldn't do catch photo release.
Oh, dude, yeah.
just saying.
Yeah, and again, like, and so I think someone in your comment section like, wouldn't catch photo release fix some of this? In theory, yes, but the problem is I don't think I personally believe live well tournaments are not having as bad of an impact on fish mortality as people think.
No.
Are fish dying? Yes. But if it's at an 80% clip, there would be no bass left, right? Because weigh-in tournaments have been going on for 30 to 40 years.
I mean, so
I'm still a person that doesn't like weigh-in tournaments during spawn. I don't like during spawn.
But again, here's the issue. Then Pennsylvania outlaws it. And I think you should have a 2 + 2 is 4. I think smallmouth, yes. You should not have smallmouth spawn tournaments because they're retarded and you could decimate them. Right? We've seen it on the lakes. Do I think, based on what I've seen on Aquia Creek, the beach area, like, oh, well, we shouldn't, like, it hasn't messed it up because, you know what I mean? Like, it's case by case basis.
So we have the Upper Bay has been pounded by spawn time tournaments for 15 years. Probably the last 10 to 15 years. Absolutely pounded by spawn time tournaments. This year was one of kicked out some of the best bags that have ever been caught on the Upper Bay. Mm-hmm. There was the championship tournament for the Susquehanna Flats Trail, which was later in the year. It was in July or August. I think it was July. It wasn't in August. It was June or July. It might have been June. It was post spawn, but so maybe July. I can't remember the exact date. There were 2 26-pound bags waiting.
And this is the thing that gets back to the data. When Odenkirk talked about, like, there's variables that we don't account for. And I come back here with the calculations I did. And if it's at 45% mortality for the Upper Bay, that's 60,000 killed. If there's only 100,000 big bass in that lake, that means the bay would be exterminated in 1 year because 60% would be dead.
If they are talking, like, if you say 60% tournament mortality, right? Is that what your number you're using? Where you're getting your tournament numbers from?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so I'm just throwing out. So if they say that there's a 45 to 60% mortality rate for tournaments per tournament, which is what the article said, and I humored that. Per tournament. Yeah, I just threw out some numbers. So let's say there's 100,000 bass caught per year. Then let's just make that the random example. Well, that would be 60,000 that would be killed.
Every 2 to 3 out of 5 fish would die.
So let's say half the year, 2 days, and 20 days.
There's an Excel spreadsheet right here.
26. Yeah. So best say about 25 to 30,000 fish. That would be a 100-boat tournament, catching 5 fish limits, 2 days a week for half the year.
Which means if they say there's only about 50,000 adults that we would be catching, that means there's a 123% mortality rate. We just wiped out the bay in 1 year. So that's bullshit. Is there 100,000 3-pounders? That's bullshit because in 1 year, we got rid of 60% of the population.
Now,
Is there
So if we
two?
go
And so my point is like they don't know how many big bass are in the Upper Bay.
So that would be just off my generalized numbers of the Upper Bay, right?
Yeah.
And that 100 boat tournament, 2 days a week for half the year. I mean, that's still only 15,000 fish.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, there's more than there. There's a lot of fish in the Upper Bay,
Is
and it
there
is
a-
way more than those numbers will allow you to.
it's one of the factors that
believe.
we're now, obviously, this is being proven to be completely asinine. But is there a difference in the mortality rate in fish being released in tournaments in tidal son of a bitch?
Why? Why is it doing that?
I don't know. Oh, and he's gone. Why does
Give
it
him a second.
do that?
I bet he'll come back. This would be a great time for a commercial break.
Commercial.
Tactical Fishing Company.
Yeah, let's do that.
They make baits.
Wait, he's back.
There hasn't been a striated study, which is stupid because I do think
Didn't even miss a beat.
I know, right?
He's just...
the elites. I don't think the elites kill fish, and I think I said this last night on the stream. It's like I don't think the elites kill fish at the same thing. Like again, a local tournament club where the guy has a 50-year-old boat and it's not his livelihood. I know it's not a study, but anecdotally that makes sense that Hunter Shryock takes better care of his fish. I mean, if you running a goddamn IKEA for $150,000, you better take better care.
Well,
yeah, I'd
plus,
say so.
What people don't see is the amount of effort that Gene Gillian puts into making sure that they have the absolute best water quality in their tanks. He is injecting those tanks with oxygen. He carries an oxygen tank around, measures the dissolved oxygen in each one of the weigh-in tanks, and if they're low, he'll shoot oxygen into it. You know, the local trails obviously don't have that, so I would expect their mortality rate to be higher.
Yeah, which means we need to do a better job.
But how much
exactly
higher, right?
How
if
much
it's a
higher?
difference, if it's say it could be double, it could be doubly as bad. But if it's only and this is where manipulation of data comes in, because you can have somebody make the argument that local tournament anglers kill fish at 2 times the rate that the elite anglers do. But if the mortality rate for the elite anglers is only 2%, and those local anglers are now 4%, it's not bad.
No, it's not. And that's the thing is,
And that's just my offshoot of manipulation of data and how you word it.
Unless you know how many fish actually exist in Lake Gunnersville, I don't believe the data when it says about the mortality rate, because it means nothing. Yeah. And so when Maryland said the worst tournament they had was like at 8%, 15%, it's like, okay, well, a lot of documents say it's like 50 to 80%. So like, that's really good, right? But culturally it comes down to this. Are you somebody that wants it to be absolute zero, or are you someone like it's low enough and that's fine? If you believe that you want absolute zero, you can only go one direction, and that's going to be a conclusion.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it's, because if we look back at that article, Jim, they say that stocking is a waste of money. So stocking does nothing, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
I think that's been proved pretty much everywhere that good stocking programs exist. Maryland being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at we can use the gunpowder as an example. We went from having almost no fish because we had a massive fish gill to before our grass died because of environmental issues that we can't control. Mm-hmm. I mean, last year was so incredible. It was so incredible down here. I mean, just phenomenal. And it was, that's 7 years from a massive fish kill where probably estimated, using that scientific term again, right? estimated 80% of all fish in the river were killed.
Mm. Yeah,
And in 7 years, because of a stocking program, we went almost, I mean, within 10% of how good it was prior to that fish kill. That's just from stocking.
and the other thing that came up was like, oh, well, Lake Fork has a slot limit. And people like want to take a complex thing and make it simple. It's like, okay, Lake Fork, it has great genetics, great forage, great habitat. And then they have the big bass program. And then they sprinkled on top a slot limit. You can't then select, oh, it's just because of the slot limit it's successful. Like, it's a bunch of things.
The other thing with Lake Fork that you have to take into account too, when we're talking about the economic impact for tournaments and fishing in general that it brings to the community, is the marketing for Lake Fork as a trophy bass lake.
Legendly, yeah,
is insanely good. So people don't want to go there. I mean, people want to go there to fish tournaments, obviously, but people want to go there because that's their best chance at catching a 10-pounder.
Yep.
And it's an amazing lake. I fished it earlier this year. Freaking amazing. That place is awesome. Full of grass. I mean, tons of grass. There's standing timber. There's pretty much every kind of structure you can think of. Millions upon millions of gizzard shad to get these things fattened up. And
you guys had a great comment. I'm trying to find the damn comment section, but it was about catch photo release. It's not necessarily, this is a crazy thought. It's not that catch photo and catch weigh release. One argument is environmental impact. I'm going to do another one, which is capitalism. It is way cheaper logistically to use Tourney X as a tournament director than it is to host one on premises.
Sure.
So the biggest thing from a bass perspective or big organizations, when they do that, is logistically, they will cut their expenditures in half and they'll make more money. So when the technology gets better for catch weigh release at a BFL level, they will literally cut their expenses in half and they'll make more money. So it will naturally happen. Like we went from a train to a horse to an automobile. So don't worry about that if you're catch photo release. I'm just talking about these other principles here.
Yeah, I'm still the trust issue with catch photo release.
Which is funny because you still have a phone in your pocket people can track you with.
No. It's trusting. I don't trust people, and I don't trust people not to cheat.
Yeah, and
even in all the platforms.
Well, in all the platforms, but if you do a live, it's a lot harder to cheat in a live weigh-in tournament than it is to box a fish, which I've seen this done recently in a catch photo release tournament. Box a fish, take a picture of it at 8 o'clock, go to a different part of the lake, take a picture of it at 9:30, and I think there were like 3 photos of the same fish in this tournament.
And it's hard because, I mean, I'll play the counter of the argument was like Clear Lake. There was a big tournament scandal where a guy caught bass in Smith Mountain Lake, put him in his live well, went to the Clear Lake tournament and won with like 18 pounds. People are like, that, how the hell did you do that? Like,
I remember that.
Like, cheating will always happen. But will the technology get better? God, yes, it will. Yeah. And I
just don't think it's there yet. Like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't trust anyone. So until there's a way to better weed out the potential cheating, which I haven't seen yet because we lost you again, and this is getting annoying, and we need to figure out how to fix that. Yes. Why do they keep dropping?
And the best way to do it is just to shame them. Like, that's what you got to do.
Right, but if they're caught.
Well, yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I have a suspicion that cheating in tournaments, even locally here, locally everywhere, is more prevalent than we think it is.
Oh, God, yeah.
And, the problem is it's even with catch photo release or a live weigh-in, it's always hard to enforce that, right? Because you don't have proof, right? You can suspect that somebody was cheating, but when it comes down to it, like, they have 5 bass, they came in, they're in their live well, nobody saw them do anything bad, so it's just, is that suspicion, jealousy, or is it based in some kind of based on some kind of logic.
And I think that's an economic scale kind of gap to where I think like a Bass Open will have less cheating than your local club. I think the Hobie Kayak National Tour has way less cheating than a local club because it becomes down like you have so much at stake for getting caught.
Yes.
You have
Totally
so much shame. And I think that's where if you do want to fish for a living, you want to fish a Toyota level event because there will be a higher probability that things are going to be on the up and up versus your local Thursday nighter.
But
general.
for that, I know there was someone disqualified from the Bass Open on the Bay, 2 years ago for cheating because I know the person who reported him. Bass Opens, no net rule. You cannot use a net. Dude used a net for every single fish that he caught on a crankbait. Despite the co-angler saying, hey man, you can't use a net. And then the boater telling him to shut up.
Well, and that's where wear a camera, have a camera going. I'm so that pisses me off so much that they won't let cameras.
That's the thing that I feel like it's just not it's just not there yet. I want I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly fine with it. Jason said they always get caught eventually. Yeah, because they get greedy and they try to do something stupid, and they get caught eventually. And eventually, it will get to a point where we can trust Joe Schmo, like our Thursday night. Like, and just going back to what George and Mike said on the Susquehanna Fishing Tackle Live last night, it is a great platform for your club level tournaments.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect for that. Yeah.
I would even do it like the Thursday nighters. I would be fine with that because it's the same 15 people that fish them every week. Like we fish against each other for the last 5 years.
It's the same freaking guys over and over again.
I'm part of Maryland's Antietam Bassmasters. We do catch weight release. You have a co-angler that you're competing against, and you have to sign a piece of paper for each fish that you sign that this is the weight. So if there's any So because we're both competing against each other, there's kind of like we can't screw each other over because you mutually assured destruction. But because of that, we can go to PA. We can go to places before Maryland's thing is out there and fish it. And so in certain instances, it does make sense. But you're right. The technology is just not there yet. But this is also, here's the thing. This is where I think
Jason.
Could you imagine me standing next to
Jason doesn't take things like that lightly. And,
we need to shame him. This is the thing that pisses me off about Bass.
Jason will snap your arm and have you wrapped up in a freaking pretzel before you even know what happened.
Yes, more of that, please. More of that.
You know what? It's that used to happen. That used to if you got caught cheating in a tournament, you were getting your ass kicked.
I'm surprised those walleye fishermen survived.
Litigation culture has ruined us kicking somebody's ass for cheating. Because if you kick somebody's ass, you're going to get sued.
Kick his ass, sea bass!
And Bass doing what they do, like they're so mafia-esque where they just hush it under the table when people cheat and not shaming them. Because if it starts at the top, right? Yep. If somebody cheats at the top, you got to run them through the rails. It sucks, but you have to set an example for the lower people that we will F you up if you do this.
But they don't want to hurt. They don't want to hurt his career. You didn't. He did. He hurt his career.
Right. Yeah, he hurt his career.
He hurt his career by cheating. Hold him accountable. They would gain so much more legitimacy.
Yep.
If any of them, and I'm not talking about Bass. I'm talking any of the pro or NPFL, Bass, MLF, any of those. If they just took those people who cheated, disqualified them, banned them from fishing.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff that's been done in the last 4 or 5 years, like guys. We won't mention any names because we don't need any defamation shoots. But there may have been a guy who was snagging fish on a certain tour, and obviously snagged fish, and was he was getting information and convincing people that he was allowed to get information. So doing it on purpose, that dude should never be allowed to fish again in your organization.
In the United States of America.
But you know who gets banned? James Watson, who just said, "Hey, this sucks. Why don't we do something different?" They banned him from fishing.
Don't go against the money, Paul.
That's so. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's kind of a
no, because it's like Mike Long. If you guys remember Mike
Oh yeah,
Long.
Oh, yeah,
We know all about
absolutely.
Mike Long.
And there is this alleged rumor that the sponsors knew about it, but they wouldn't do anything because it was something that sold. It took a dude to get in a ghillie suit with a camera
Oh yeah.
to figure that shit out. But like no one would actually turn over that rock until somebody actually did a private investigation.
Yep.
Because they're okay as long as their bread gets buttered.
Right.
Yep.
It's effed. I mean, it's every sport's like that. I mean, like how many football players we know that kills a hooker at 2 a.m., but he's great at catching passes. I mean, I'm talking about you guys, Cowboy fans. I'm talking about you. And it just happens.
Call him out.
But in fishing, it's weird because you get these people that want to act like prima donnas when they don't make any money. It's so weird, especially the forward-facing sonar debate. When freaking Clark Wendland went out on his like freaking soapbox, and it's like, bitch, you were the first one to get forward-facing sonar, and you won AOY because of it. What are you doing this holier than thou crap?
So, he made a good point. I just listened to. He was on Dave Mercer's podcast just this week, right? And he basically said, yes, I've used it. Yes, I was one of the first people to have it.
And yes, I won AOY because of it.
and was successful with it. But over the last few years, after using it, I have seen the sport go in what I feel is the wrong direction. And like I totally understand that, right? Like you can have a change of opinion. Like you can start using something and think, oh man, this is the bee's knees because you're in the infancy of it, right? And you don't necessarily realize how much of an impact it's going to have. And then you see the impact and you go, well, you know what? Maybe this wasn't that great for fishing as a whole. So I'm not going to knock on Clark Wendland. Like he's
I'll promote somebody. Big G. He's going to fish the NPFL.
Yeah.
A guy that doesn't like forward-facing sonar, and he's going to put his money where his mouth is. He's going to fish the. Yeah. Okay, cool. Good for you.
I love G. He's going to fish. He's going to fish both. Because the thing with I've listened to quite a few people talk about this recently. Quite a few of what we consider our old school anglers. And here's the thing: it's not that they're bad with forward-facing sonar. They just don't like to do it. And they don't feel like it should be the main way that you have to fish. Greg Hackney he said that he's like, look, I did well I think he did well at Champlain. And, you hear Greg Hackney on Champlain, oh man, he was flipping grass. He was staring at his scope all day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that he can't do it. It's just that he doesn't like to do it, and but he's not like your super naysayer on it either, right? He's like, live scope's cool. I just don't like doing it, so I'm not going to do it because it's not fun for me. Like win, lose, or draw, that happens. But
and it talks to you about the lifespan of an athlete, and that's a whole other conversation we'll get into. Where I see this with my old friends that love football. It's like, well, why don't you just run the ball up the middle? It's like, because it's not the 1860s anymore. You got to do things differently. But it's like back in my day, we had success with that. It's like, yeah, and now we have playbooks and cameras and stuff, and this is what you do. And what happens as an athlete when you get through this next generation, you're no longer good enough to compete. Like this is what happens. And what makes being an athlete cool. And is this a sport or not? And come back to that. If you're entitled to just be there because you've been there forever, that's not about how good you are anymore.
No, absolutely. But and one thing that we can, the cool thing about fishing is it's not limited. Unlike other sports, it's not limited by age.
No,
it's limited by mental ability.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's how good you are at being able to use the technology.
It's how good you are at being able to adapt to whatever's new. That's
it's key. Being able to adapt to whatever's new, adapt to
whether it be baits, technology.
It's being an early adapter.
Back like you guys were saying though, like, oh well, you can't compete if you're not using forward-facing sonar. Well, yeah, because forward-facing sonar has changed the entire game of fishing. So now if you don't use it, you pretty much are getting left behind.
I didn't say that you couldn't compete. Because guess what? Half the Elite Series tournaments this year were won without forward-facing sonar.
It was used at some point to locate fish and or the other.
Example is this.
You're not scoping. you can use using it as radar to see fish is just like using
definitely
sight,
different.
right?
Yeah,
You're not fishing for fish
Yeah,
on live scope. That's what I mean by scoping. And that's what people consider scoping is you're seeing a fish, you're casting to that fish and catching it.
yeah.
But with
but
all this stuff in
half your
fishing,
tournament's
it's about
won
early
without it.
adapters.
You're using it as a tool.
Yeah, but how quickly do you adapt to something? So in 2005 is when side scan came out. And when side scan came out, the people that jumped on it first had a hellacious advantage.
KVD.
Because Hummingbird, KVD, Steve Kennedy, Alton Jones, like all these guys, like,
Brian
oh, this is
Thrift.
the thing. Brian Thrift. When Steve Kennedy brought back all those swim baits from Clear Lake and he started to smoke people on the Bastrix, you get a window of a couple of years before everyone else catches up to it. And it
Andy
looks
Montgomery and
insanely
Brian
good.
Thrift with a chatterbait.
Yep. It just, and so this happens, but now it's like what? We're about 4 or 5 years with all the major manufacturers with it. Maybe a little bit longer. It hasn't been
4 years.
that long.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So that's not technically that long when you look at side scan and how long side scan was a major thing.
Technically 6 if you count the original Panoptics,
Yeah,
which was more like radar.
but not every brand
really.
had that. And you, if you were a sponsor of Lowrance or
Well, Hummingbirds only had it for 2 years.
Okay, so there you go. So it's been 2 years since everyone has had it, allegedly. But even then, when it was just Lowrance and Garmin, there were a lot of people poaching that were Hummingbird that threw it on their boat. But I digress. The point is, now everybody has it. I think in another 2 or 3 years, it's going to level out because all the field will be good at it. And then there will be a shallow bite, and then the weights will start balancing back out again.
So the argument to that, just to play devil's advocate, is, and this is something that I've heard quite a few people say, is that the shallow bite isn't going to come back because the fish don't make it to the shallows anymore.
See you, Jason.
Because they're getting caught. They're getting caught before they get shallow.
If they keep going to a TVA lake in the summer, I think you're correct. I think 2025 will be the coolest year because bass listened and they're going to a lot more shallow friendly places.
Mm-hmm.
Will that change it up?
Probably not, but
I
mean,
well,
look at
Potomac
what.
River,
But look
Mississippi.
Look at what Wheeler did on the Challen this year in BPT. 100%.
Won.
Wheeler was still in what?
Or James.
Second,
I'm sorry, James. That was the James.
Was it? Wait, was it Challen? It might have been the James. Wheeler was in the top 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scoped
100%.
the entire tournament. Like in a tidal water that you wouldn't that people are saying, well, they're going to a tidal water, so scope's not going to play. Like it does. I'm not saying it's a predominant pattern. But it can, just like anything, it can play anywhere.
Yeah, as it was explained to me, going to those places doesn't disadvantage scope. It just gives people that hate it a chance.
I think it balances the field a little more.
It balances the field. You can get a fighter throwing a frog at Lake Champlain. He ain't going to do that in the St. Lawrence. Like, that's hardcore going to be forward-facing sonar heavy. And so I think balancing the field is a good thing. And again, like, because I had that conversation too. It's like, oh, there was somebody at the Sabine scoping. It's like, yeah, of course, you can go anywhere in scope, but there's only so many lakes you can throw a frog over grass, like Cox and Jordan did, and still have a puncher's chance of winning.
Well, I mean, Koya, was it the Sabine 2 years ago that Koya did really well, and he was scoping, But you have one person that figured out one scoping bite. Like everybody else was throwing a buzz bait in 6 inches of water.
Yeah.
3/4 of the field was throwing a buzz bait, and the guy who won was throwing a popper. Like, yeah, it does do a lot. I think it does do a lot to even out the field. But like I said earlier, if you look at the Elite Series this year, 4 or 5 of the tournaments this year were won without forward-facing sonar. Generally without forward-facing sonar. The first 2 were, that was Toledo and Fork. Then they went to Florida. So Florida was both of those were one, or one of them was one sight fishing.
The James,
bedded fish.
not the James. The
St. John's was one using Tennessee River, old school Tennessee River ledge fishing techniques. Hair jig and a deep crankbait. Big hair jig. The big monster monstrous ones that are like this.
Oh shit! Oh yeah.
Yeah, like great big bucktails. Not like those little stupid.
Jordan Lee did that also on I
but-
think it was a big bass event too in Florida 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. He was. It was. I think it was like the heavy hitters or something.
Yeah.
He was throwing a big hair jig. Okay, so then you went from there to Murray. Murray. Who won Murray?
I think it was a Japanese guy. Let me check that.
No, wasn't. That was 2 years ago that Coyle won. He didn't win.
Okay.
I think wasn't Patrick Walters, but it was one of the. I think it was one of those. It might have been Drew Benton or something.
I got the Google.
Google it for me. Who won? Because if you like, I just can't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure I can remember how they were fishing.
Patrick Walters.
Did he win? It was Patrick.
2024. Yep.
So Patrick Walters probably he is a very good scoper. Was probably throwing scoping and throwing topwater, right? So give that one like a half. Let's not count. We won't count that one because that one's probably 50-50. The next two are where do we go from there?
We did go back to because Okajiro, whatever that Japanese guy's name is, he won using it. Was that Wheeler? Where was that?
Taku won Smith.
Taku won Smith. Okay.
Wheeler was one on a chatterbait, fishing grass. So no scope
That
there.
blew my mind.
Champlain was one throwing a swim bait in grass.
And of course, like Bass will play 1,000 times fighter with the damn frog because they'll throw that clip out there.
Right, but he didn't win. Ed Lochran won throwing a jig.
Yeah.
He was throwing a jig and a swim bait in grass.
Mm-hmm.
No forward facing sonar there.
But
so there's half your tournament. And then obviously the St. Lawrence is one.
But that's the thing is you started the year and ended the year with forward facing sonar.
So that's all anybody remembers.
Yep.
Nobody remembers the 4 tournaments that were won traditional style fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did forward-facing sonar help them? I'm sure it did because, like, you can use forward-facing sonar to see like grass edges and stuff like that. But it's not the scoping that people are complaining about, right? Because the scoping that people are complaining about is the guy that's standing there like this all day, staring at a screen,
40 feet of water
every 20 minutes, making a cast with a spinning rod.
But again, it's like there are tournaments that will line up 100% for forward-facing sonar. If you go to Toledo Bend in February, a shit ton of people will be scoping.
I mean,
the
same. They could have been the same time of year. If that cold front hadn't moved through, that tournament would have been one shallow.
Yeah, easily. Or you waited a week.
Yeah. But it's so hard to it's so hard to predict. You can't predict weather, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can try the best that you can to have like I want to hold this tournament on Toledo Bend, during the spawn where they're going to catch massive bags, up shallow, and the wrong weather event rolls through and that's done. If it's maybe it's unusually warm and they move up early. You get that cold front and it pulls them off and they don't move up. Your scheduling around that is so hard.
Jacob, Morgan Oliver says something cool in your comment section about Jacob scoped the whole James tournament. That would have been cool as a weigh-in tournament. I talked to a lot of locals and they're actually happy it was that way because you didn't move all the fish they caught all over the place. That relocation, I think, is an interesting thing to talk about because I think everyone has their opinion on it. That if you have Bass go there or MLF for 4 days, that would be a shit ton of fish they would move all the way upriver versus catch, weigh, release where you just dump it.
Do you mean a live weigh-in tournament or a 5-fish tournament?
Yeah. Because, that is interesting on tidal water where I can see where if you're moving fish over a lot of brackish water, you can... when Bass goes to the Yakapic River, whatever it is, and if they drive all the way to Back Bay, there's no way those fish are going back to Back Bay. They could decimate Back Bay in theory if you have enough saltwater intrusion. So I can see an argument there about where you have a tournament like that.
Yeah, it's I definitely.
Or Winyah Bay is another good one.
Yeah, Winyah Bay. So he said a 5-fish tournament. So take this with a grain of salt because these numbers came from MLF and we know how good they are. They're totally a reliable source. But they said that they did some some calculations when they switched to 5 fish for that 1 year, and they didn't see a significant change in winners if they only scored their top 5 biggest fish versus scoring all of them. Generally, the person who caught the most fish had the 5 biggest fish.
And I think there is a mindset. It is National League versus American League Baseball. If you're fishing 5 versus every fish counts, or you say a pound plus or 2 pound plus, you can catch 20 pounds in a tournament and you mentally sit back a little bit. I think if it's every fish counts, you can't mentally stop thinking about it.
No, you're constantly on the go.
And so, who would you think is the best fisherman? One that is only good at one format, or one that's no matter what format they kick your ass?
Jordan Lee. I'll just throw the name out there because it doesn't matter what he fishes. Wheeler too. Wheeler's just a little more shady than Jordan Lee is.
Agreed.
And I love Wheeler. Like I think he's absolutely entertaining to watch. There's just a black cloud that is kind
he's a disciple of Scott Martin. What do you think? Like,
well, and he's what does James Watson call him? Boyd Duckett's godson or something.
Dude knows how to play the game right. But oh my god, the amount of money he's won.
But if you look at
insane.
So I say Jordan Lee, and the funny, good old Slick Johnson, who clickbait king, but he fished with Jordan Lee a lot, and he was talking about fishing with him one time, and he said, "This is how you really understand how good of an angler somebody like that is. We're out fishing one day, and we pull up on this spot and we catch 4 or 5 3 to 4 pound fish. We're catching them pretty good. And I think they were all on Wheeler, and." The next thing he's like, the next thing I know, we're 500 yards up the lake, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like we were just catching them back there. He's like that. Jordan looks back at him and goes, well, that wasn't the juice. We're gonna keep going. Like just knowing, like he basically said with MLF, you have to constantly be on the juice the entire day.
Yeah,
because if you're not catching them, somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you remember the classic he won where his big motor broke down and he still won the damn classic?
Yeah, I fished that point in a national championship a couple years ago.
It's just insane. Like how calm he was.
Those giants weren't on that point when I was there. Let me just throw that out there.
No, like it really is. I fished it before. It's a stressful format. For the people in the comment that haven't fished it before in a tournament, it's stressful as shit when you think like you just can't, you got to keep going. You never feel confident.
Well, think to the score tracker too. Like,
oh my God,
being able to know, do you know how much, so I have a guy in my club, and if I want to, I do it because it's funny, but I can ruin his day of fishing in a tournament and totally spin him out just by telling him that how much weight I have. Like, and he'll be done for the rest. He'll just spin out the rest of the day. Can you imagine hearing that every 30 seconds? Score tracker update.
Yeah.
And you went through, say you went 20 minutes without getting a bite. Just 20 minutes without getting a bite. How much of that I couldn't do it.
No.
Too much stress.
It's so much stress, and you get that pressure, that screw. It just keeps tightening in it, and then you have a ticking clock. And another thing I like is, you don't have to drive back. You just fish until you're done,
right?
And that's something else. The clock is amazing. I really wish Bass had something like that, or
that is pretty
tell
cool.
The anglers, tell whoever's in the leads, like, guess what? You only have a pound lead. This guy just caught one. Like,
see, and I don't like that. I like the mystery. I hate Bass Track, to be honest. Like I cannot stand Bass
for
Track.
Us or for them.
For me.
Gotcha.
Because they can't look at it anyway, right?
But should they be able to?
I don't think so.
Because every other sport, you're
because if you
to.
know, well, think about it. Think about this though. If you know, we say you're on Champlain, and now granted these guys know exactly how much they need on those lakes that they go to all the time. But if I say I'm on a lake and I got 23 pounds, and it's 12 o'clock, and then guy number 2 has 18 pounds, and it's day one.
Talking strategy, I think.
It's strategy, but I would, yes, it's strategy, but I think it's more interesting as a viewer for them not to know and have to make that decision without the data in front of them. Like,
Yeah,
man, I need to. So I need to get to I need to get to this weight. Like, this is the weight I think I need to get to, right? So your estimate, those estimates.
And it really comes down to like, do you want more luck involved or you want more data? Because that's forward-facing sonar. If you like more luck in the mystery, like gambling, okay, no forward-facing sonar. You just you throw the dice and see what happens. But
It's poker.
okay, I've done this pattern for 3 days straight and it's not working. And then you have 10 pounds. Shit, I got 10 minutes left. Okay, what adjustments do I have to make right now to make this thing go?
To catch 2 5-pounders.
Yeah. Okay, do I just tie a glide? And this is why I hate co-anglers or partners. I fish better alone because like I don't want any voices. I just want to be alone to make a decision. Because as soon as you start having people catching me out of the back of the boat, I'm spinning, I'm drinking, I'm going insane because I don't know what's going on. And I want to see my pro athletes be like, guess what? You suck today. What are you going to do about it, bitch? Like, okay, this is the score tracker. Like, crank the screws on those guys. I want to see how they react to it.
See, I think the reason that I don't want to see it is because it's not like it's something that I have, right? I want to see them in more of a situation of like that I myself have been in multiple times. You get that that relatable experience, right?
Yeah, I get that.
I think that's more like why I think they shouldn't see that, and I don't want to see one because, come on, the score tracker is not accurate anyway. Or not score tracker, Bass Track.
The Bass Track.
Bass Track.
Okay, gotcha.
Bass Track's not accurate.
No, Bass Track is not accurate at all.
Corey Johnson was listed at having like 18 pounds, or I think 19 pounds on the first day of the St. Lawrence River this year. Dude had 26.
And this is what's great about having the 2 leagues. You can watch what you want. And you know what? I thought the team format is pretty freaking cool.
Love it.
Like,
I thought
absolutely
that was
love
really
it.
cool. For
the lakes
myself,
suck,
yeah.
but it's like, holy shit, that's neat.
Absolutely love it because I've probably fished more.
I like
team
watching them
tournaments.
work together and like talk about the strategy.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've probably fished more team tournaments than anything anything, right? And that's how my day goes. Again, it's a relatable experience, right?
Yeah.
I can, seeing how they work together, how they break
you
it
throw
down.
this, I'll throw this.
Right.
You put on this color, I'm going to throw that color. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How they talk about like they're going, they're I was watching when they were on OH Ivy, which made me laugh because like the biggest fish caught in like 6 days was like 4 pounds, but they're idling out and they're talking about like they're coming out of this like back kind of, it wasn't a backwater but basically like a brush field because the water was so low. So they're idling out, and while they're idling out, you like hearing them talk about like where they want to hit next,
yes,
where they need to hit. And like, we saw that rock bank over here, down there, but let's run up here. We can run up here first, and then we can make that, we can make a little rotation into that. Super cool,
dude. That's why if I was Bass, I'm so scared because they are so willing to experiment. They're eventually going to crack the code. Like they keep trying,
unless they run out of money first.
Unless they run out of money, or Alabama and Virginia, everyone bans weigh-ins, and then they're
then
fine.
everybody's screwed.
Yeah, then everyone's screwed.
Or MLF wins.
It's dude, it's just insane. Like what? I haven't even talked to you guys. I think about the no entry fees. What do you guys think about that?
So here I'm okay. Selfishly, for somebody who's fishing the Bass Nation Championship next year, hell yeah, no entry fees. Because now if I happen to win and qualify for the elites, I can actually fish the elites now, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, like it's, I hope there's some, and I know they're working with the anglers right now to readjust that pay scale.
Why?
I don't know. It's fantastic. I mean, I would totally be down for bringing home $500, but
yeah, as a professional working at McDonald's.
So, but again, business, professional angling itself, being a professional angler is a business. You're not fishing tournaments. People have not been able to survive on tournament winnings in a long time. So it benefits a lot of people. It doesn't benefit a lot of people. And I think it's a happy, like, or not a happy medium, but I think it's a good start. As long as there's some sort of plan to improve this over the next few years. You know, like, hey, this is our starting point. We want, we'd like to increase this by 10% each year for the next 5 years. Like, that's our goal. Have some sort of financial plan for increasing those payouts. Would be good. I think would be better. But somebody mentioned with the new format without entry fees, you would have to make $60,000 in a year, which is like your average salary, right? You would have to place in the top 12 or better in every tournament. Do you know what it was on the old one? 8th. You had to place eighth, average of 8th every tournament to make $60,000.
Yeah.
So, looking at that, there's one. Okay, there's one. It's kind of a little bit better, on that top end.
Corporations, the military, the government do not give a shit about you. It's how do we save money? How do we make money?
Right.
They didn't have a come to Jesus moment and wake up one day and be like, guess what, everyone? We care about you anglers and we want to make sure your lives are better. How are they saving money? How are they making money?
So that's a good question too, because they're actually putting in more money than they were before.
And it's the companies. The companies went to them, I think, and said, listen, there's a recession, spoiler, and we don't want to pay them a lot. But we would look really shitty if we dialed back their contracts.
Maybe.
We want you to go and say no entry fees. And then in 2026, we can be like, well, since there's no entry fees, we don't have to. Yep, especially up front. We don't have to dump out so much money up front.
We don't have to pay you $45,000. We're giving you $45,000 for entry fees. Now that you don't have entry fees, we're going to give you $20,000.
Because if you guys don't know, if you're a company, let's say you're Berkeley, and you have 2 pros, $50,000 entry fees, you need $150,000 up front January or November. That's a lot of money
on top of what the rest of what you're paying them, right?
Yeah.
The say, maybe, $500 a week. Usually it's it's spread out over time. So, $1,000 a month or something on top of that $50,000. For 2 anglers, it gets expensive. So I'm not saying that's what's happening, but totally understand where your idea is at.
Because again, I just it's so weird when MLF did this. It's like F Boyd, he's doing everything wrong. But then when Bass does it, it's like they're amazing, they're heroes, they're so brave. It's like whoa. It's like they're not doing this to feel nice and all warm inside. There's a reason. And it could be the wrong reason what I just said, but they didn't just do it to be philanthropic.
They also didn't give the snake oil salesman speech that Boyd Duckett did before announcing it.
No, they asked anglers to do math, and they thought that would take them a little bit of time.
They didn't realize how good Logan Parks was with Excel.
Oh my gosh!
He had everybody's like loss and profit done in 2 hours for every angler.
For everything that was bad about the forward-facing standard debate, how many people couldn't do math in the comment sections made me so happy and sad at the same time of people arguing this and not being able to count or do things.
Yeah, and it's the one thing that I looked at with it is, obviously it makes sense, right? The number that they're not taking in $45,000 in entry fee per angler. You look at the number, the dollar number put out per tournament under this new schedule. It's you take the $5,000 from each angler and you subtract it from that, right? That's $500. $5 billion, $500,000 or whatever it is. $500,000, and that's essentially it's about I think I calculated it $239,000 difference, right? So Bass is putting out $239,000 more per tournament than they did. I think it was 231 to be exact.
Which,
I did a lot of math on it. So they're putting out $231,000 more per tournament than they were before, because they were already putting in, 250. Well, it makes it a sustainable. It also makes it a sustainable model too.
So
because they're used to putting out X amount of dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they've been doing that for 5 years. They've been so they're not putting a significant amount more out. Is what they're
So why change it?
Like
I don't know. I'm a cynical son of a bitch with companies and corporations, but it's just
because
why now?
What is the one thing that you've always heard from every single pro angler ever?
Why didn't you do it earlier then?
If they finally came up with maybe it took this long to figure out a way. Maybe they found
religion.
Well, maybe they found out a way that it made financial sense, which is more what I'm leaning toward, right? Because they're not going to go to zero entry fee unless it makes financial sense for them.
It makes financial sense and they can make money off of it, or the people that back them, which are the big sponsors, are telling them to do it. And so I had some people say like, well, it's the TV deal. If you know anything about corporate, if they had amazing ratings, they would plaster that shit all over the place, because you see that with movies and everything. They're kind of on the ratings, and if they signed a newer contract for a shit ton of money, they would have posted the numbers, but they haven't. That doesn't mean the numbers are bad, but I don't think they're insane.
Yeah, it does get advertised. It does get advertised quite a bit on like FX1 and FX2. Mm-hmm. I will say that they do quite a bit of advertising that goes on there, but you don't see it like, I don't know.
You don't. Which is fun fact here. So major FLW used to do it on YouTube. The reason they took it off YouTube was because you could see the ratings.
Yep.
YouTube is open and transparent.
Makes sense.
By putting it on their website, they could lie about the numbers to get more money from sponsors. That's why they pulled it off there. And so with that said, when people say the numbers are great, maybe they are, but it's like, we don't see the numbers. They get to curate the numbers before they promote them. So I don't know.
So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm gonna give you one last thought. Did Netflix really think that they could handle the amount of traffic they were going to get for this fight tonight? Because apparently Netflix is down.
That's literally what I'm going to watch after we're done here, because I was really excited for this.
Yeah,
I got it up on. I got it up on the old.
Nice.
On the old legal stream.
By the way, I do want Vince McMahon to run the MLF. I think that would change everything.
Vince McMahon.
That would be hilarious.
Yes.
Bring back fights on boats.
Oh my God, yes, please.
So, Tom, great talking to you tonight. I have a tournament tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to shut this down here. Chad wants to watch. Chad wants to watch the fight.
I only care about one fight.
I gotta go try to catch like 23 pounds on the Upper Bay. So.
Oh my God. Actually, what do you think it'd take to win?
Tomorrow, it's a club tournament. I'd say 18, 19, but. Our club held an open, not last weekend, the weekend before, and it was 23, 21, and 20 for the top three.
Wow.
This time of year on the Upper Bay is stupid, dude.
Yeah.
Like if you want to catch like if you want to catch like a 7 to 8 pounder, like this is the best. It's not the springtime up here. It's generally fall is your best time.
Overlooked time of year to go fishing for sure.
But this is my favorite time of year to fish. So I love late fall into winter. My favorite time of year.
The weather's more consistent. Like again, like in the spring, it can be windy, rainy, or whatever. Kind of every day what the temperatures and the weather's going to be like.
You know what I like about it?
Nobody's out.
There's not as many people in the water. All the bitches get cold and go home.
Black Friday weekend, I always go fishing.
It's Chad.
It's me.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm not.
Have fun.
But thank you guys for having me on short notice. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely.